Blame not thyself too much, I said, nor blame too much the sons of men and barbarous laws. These were the rough ways of the world till now. Henceforth thou hast a helper, me that know the woman's cause is man's. They rise or sink together, dwarfed, are supposedly godlike, bond or free, for she that out of Lepe scales with man, the shining steps of nature shares with man. See, it's these nature personifications that they're trying to be like. His nights, his days moves with him to one goal, stays all the fair young planet in her hands. If she be small, slight-natured, miserable, how shall men grow? But work no more alone. Our place is much, as far as in us lies. We too will serve them both in aiding her, will clear away the parasitic forms that seem to keep her up but drag her down. We'll leave her space to burgeon out of all within her. Let her make herself her own, to give or keep, to live and learn and be all that not harms distinctive womanhood. For woman is not undeveloped man, but diverse. We could make her as the man. Sweet love were slain. His dearest bond is this, not like to like, but like indifference. Yet in the long years, liker must they grow. The man be more of woman, she of man. He gain in sweetness and in moral height, nor lose the wrestling thews that throw the world. She mental breadth, nor fail in childward care, nor lose the childlike in the larger mind, till at the last she set herself to man, like perfect music unto noble words. And so these twain upon the skirts of time sit side by side, full summed in all their powers, dispensing harvest, sowing the to be, self-reverent each, and reverencing each, distinct in individualities, but like each other, even as those who love. There comes the statelier Eden back to men. Then reign the world's great bridals, chaste and calm. Then springs the crowning race of humankind. May these things be. Sighing, she spoke, I fear they will not. Dear, but let us type them now in our own lives. And this proud watchword rest of equal, seeing either sex alone is half itself, and in true marriage lies. Nor equal, nor unequal, each fulfills defect in each, and always thought in thought, purpose in purpose, will in will they grow. The single pure and perfect animal, the two-celled heart beating with one full stroke, life. And again sighing she spoke, a dream that once was mine. What woman taught you this? Alone, I said, from earlier than I know, immersed in rich foreshadowings of the world. I loved the woman. He that doth not lives a drowning life, besotted in sweet self, or pines in sad experience worse than death, or keeps his winged affections clipped with crime. Yet was there one through whom I loved her, one not learned, save in gracious household ways, not perfect, nay, but fuller of tender wants, no angel, but a dearer being, all dipped in angel instincts, breathing paradise, because humans and jinn have choice, and so those who use their free wills appropriately. Interpreter between what they call gods and men, who looked all native to her place, and yet on tiptoe seemed to touch upon a sphere too gross to tread, and all male minds perforce swayed to her from their orbits as they moved, and girdled her with music. Happy he with such a mother, faith in womankind, beats with his blood and trust in all things high, comes easy to him, and though he trip and fall, he shall not blind his soul with clay. But I, said Ida, tremulously, so all unlike, it seems you love to cheat yourself with words. This mother is your model, I have heard, of your strange doubts. They well might be, I seem a mockery to my own self. Never, prince, you cannot love me. Nay, but thee, I said, from year-long poring on thy pictured eyes, ere seen I loved, and loved thee seen, and saw thee woman through the crust of iron moods that masked thee from men's reverence up, and forced sweet love on pranks of saucy boyhood. Now given back to life indeed, through thee indeed I love. The new day comes, the light dear for night, as dearer thou for faults lived over. Lift thine eyes, my doubts are dead, my haunting sense of hollow shows. The change, this truthful change, in thee has killed it. Dear, look up and let thy nature strike on mine, like yonder morning on the blind half-world. Approach, and fear not. Breathe upon my brows. In that fine air I tremble, all the past melts mist-like into this bright hour, and this is morn to more, and all the rich to come reels, as the golden autumn woodland reels, athwart the smoke of burning weeds. Forgive me, I waste my heart in signs. Let be my bride, my wife, my life. We will walk this world, yoked in all exercise of noble end, and so through those dark gates across the wild that no man knows. Indeed, I love thee, come. Yield thyself up, in hopes and thine are one. Accomplish thou, my woman, my manhood and thyself. Lay thy sweet hands in mine and trust to me. Before we go to the conclusion, let us remember not to, rather than the superior and inferior sex sort of idea, or even sort of the opposite sometimes, but let us ever remember that the natural inferiorities and superiorities are to work together towards a equality of sorts, and to be better than either could be by itself. So closed our tale, of which I give you all the random scheme as wildly as it rose. The words are mostly mine, for when we ceased, there came a minute's pause, and Walter said, I wish she had not yielded. Then to me, what if ye dressed it up poetically? So prayed the men, the women. I gave assent. Yet how to bind the scattered scheme of 7 together in one sheaf? What style could suit? The men required that I should give throughout the sort of mock heroic gigantesque with which we bantered little Lilia first. The women, and perhaps they felt their power, for something in the ballads which they sang, or in their silent influence as they sat, had ever seemed to wrestle with burlesque, and drove us last to wish to quite a solemn close. The hated banter wished for something real, a gallant fight, a noble princess. Why not make her true heroic, true sublime? Are all they said as earnest as the close, which yet with such a framework scarce could be. Then rose a little feud betwixt the two, betwixt the mockers and the realists, and I betwixt them both, to please them both. And yet to give the story as it rose, I moved as in a strange diagonal, and maybe neither pleased myself nor them. But Lilia pleased me, for she took no part in our dispute. The sequel of the tale had touched her as she sat, and plucked the grass. She flung it from her, thinking. Last, she fixed a showery glance upon her aunt, and said, You tell us what we are, who might have told, for she was crammed with theories out of books. Or, so she thought were theories, right? But that there rose a shout. The gates were closed at sunset. and the crowd were swarming now to take their leave about the garden rails. So I and some went out to these. We climbed the slope to Vivian Place, and turned saw the happy valleys, half in light, half far shadowing from the west, a land of peace, grey halls alone among their massive groves, trim hamlets, here and there a rustic tower, half lost in belts of hop and breadths of wheat, the shimmering glimpses of a stream, the seas, a red sail or a white, and far beyond imagine more than seeing the skirts of France. Look there, a garden, said my college friend, the Tory member's elder son, and there, God bless the narrow sea which keeps her off, and keeps our Britain whole within herself. A nation yet, the rulers and the ruled, some sense of duty, something of a faith, some reverence for the laws ourselves have made, some patient force to change them when we will, some civic manhood firm against the crowd. But yonder, whiff, there comes a sudden heat. The gravest citizen comes to lose his head. The king is scared. The soldier will not fight. The little boys began to shoot and stab. A kingdom topples over with a shriek, like an old woman, and down rolls the world, and mock heroic stranger than our own, revolts republics, revolutions most, no graver than a schoolboy's barring out, too comic for the serious things they are, too solemn for the comic touches in them, like our wild princess, with as wise a dream as some of theirs. God bless the narrow seas. I wish they were a whole Atlantic broad. Have patience, I replied. Ourselves are full of social wrong, and maybe wildest dreams are but the needful preludes of the truth. For me, the genial day, the happy crowd, the sport half science, fill me with the faith. This fine old world of ours is but a child, yet in the go-kart, patience, give it time to learn its limbs. There is a hand that guides. In such discourse, we gained the garden rails, and there we saw Sir Walter, where he stood before a tower of crimson hollyhocks, among 6 boys, head under head, and looked no little lily-handed baronet he, a great broad-shouldered, genial Englishman, a lord of fat prize oxen and of sheep, a raiser of huge melons and of pine, a patron of some 30 charities, a pamphleteer on guano and on grain, a quarter sessions chairman, abler none, fairer-haired and redder than a windy morn, now shaking hands with him, now him of those that stood the nearest, now addressed to speech, who spoke few words and pithy, such as closed, welcome, farewell, and welcome for the year to follow. A shout rose again and made the long line of approaching rookery swerve from the elms, and shook the branches of the deer from slope to slope through distant ferns, and rang beyond the bourne of sunset. Oh, a shout more joyful than the city roar that hails Premier, our King. Why should not these great sirs give up their parks some dozen times a year to let the people breathe? So thrice they cried, I likewise, and in groups they streamed away. But we went back to the abbey, and set on, so much the gathering darkness charmed. We sat, but spoke not, wrapped in nameless reverie. Perchance upon the future man the walls blackened about us, bats wheeled and owls whooped, and gradually the powers of the night that range above the region of the wind, deepening the courts, a twilight broke them up. Through all the silent spaces of the worlds, beyond all thought, into the heaven of heavens, last little Lilia, rising quietly, disrobed the glimmering statue of Sir Ralph from those rich silks, and home well pleased we went. And it's very important that rather than a war of the classes and all that sort of stuff, as long as the poor are allowed what they need and there's appropriate taxes for all, not overtaxing, why can't some be richer? But the ennoblement of life for all.